I can't marry you, she whispered, her voice trembling as she stared at the hospital floor. I'm too broken. Those 6 words hit me harder than anything I had ever heard. Not because I doubted my love for her. Not because I was afraid of what the future might look like. But because the woman sitting in front of me, the woman who had spent years lifting other people up, could no longer see her own worth. The fluorescent lights above us hummed softly. Nurses walked past. Machines beeped in distant rooms. Life continued as if nothing had happened. But for us, everything had changed. I reached for her hand. Her fingers were cold. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to pull away. Ashamed of her vulnerability, I held on tighter. Then I looked directly into her eyes and said the only truth I knew. You're not broken. She shook her head. Yes, I am. No, I said gently. You're the strongest woman I know. The moment those words left my mouth, she broke down completely. And so did I. Because neither of us knew then just how much strength she truly had. 3 years earlier, I met Emily at a community food bank in Ohio. Every Saturday morning, volunteers gathered to pack groceries for families struggling to make ends meet. Most people came once or twice. Emily came every week, rain or shine, holiday, weekends, snowstorms. It didn't matter. She was always there. What stood out wasn't just her dedication, it was her kindness. She remembered everyone's name. She carried boxers for elderly volunteers. She stayed late to clean up. And somehow, she always made people feel seen. The first conversation we had lasted only 5 minutes. By the second week, it was 30. By the third month, we were inseparable. She had a laugh that filled a room, a heart that made strangers feel like family, and a habit of helping everyone except herself. When I asked why she volunteered so much, she smiled. Because people saved me once, she said. I'm just trying to pass it forward. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Later, I learned her story. At 22, Emily had survived a devastating car accident. A drunk driver crossed into her lane. She spent months in the hospital, years in recovery, multiple surgeries, chronic pain that never fully disappeared. The physical scars were visible. The emotional ones ran deeper. The accident took more than her health. It stole her confidence, her sense of security, her belief that she deserved happiness. Yet somehow, despite all that, she became one of the most compassionate people I had ever known. That's why I fell in love with her. Not because she was perfect, because she wasn't. Because she understood suffering and still chose kindness. A year after we met, I proposed. We were walking through a park during autumn. Golden leaves covered the ground. Children played nearby. The sky looked like a painting. When I got down on one knee, she cried before I even finished asking. Then she laughed through her tears. Yes, it was the happiest day of my life. For a while, everything felt perfect. We planned a small wedding, picked a venue, argued over cake flavors, dreamed about the future. Then everything changed. A routine medical appointment revealed complications from old injuries. Doctors found issues that required more surgeries. Recovery could take months, possibly longer. Suddenly, our lives were filled with specialists, treatments, uncertainty, and fear. I watched the woman I loved endure pain most people couldn't imagine. Yet her biggest concern wasn't herself, it was me. One evening, after another exhausting hospital visit, she sat quietly beside me. I think we should postpone the wedding, she said. We can if you want, I replied. She stared out the window. No. I think we should cancel it. My heart sank. What are you talking about? She wouldn't look at me. You deserve a normal life. I knew where this was going. Emily. No, she interrupted. Listen to me. Her voice cracked. You deserve someone healthy. Someone who won't spend half her life in hospitals. Someone who can give you everything. I moved closer. You already do. She shook her head. No. I'm damaged. You're not. Yes, I am. Weeks passed. The surgeries came. The recovery was brutal. Pain medications, physical therapy, sleepless nights. There were days she couldn't get out of bed, days she refused visitors, days she barely spoke. And through it all, she became convinced she was a burden. One afternoon, I arrived at the hospital and found her crying. A wedding magazine sat unopened beside her. That was when she finally said the words that shattered me. I can't marry you. I'm too broken. The sadness in her voice was unbearable. Not because she was giving up on us, because she truly believed what she was saying. That her value had somehow decreased because life had wounded her. That scars made her less lovable. That pain made her less deserving. I took her hand. Look at me, I said. She hesitated. Then she did. You survived something that should have destroyed you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You spend your life helping people.
More tears.
You show kindness, even when you're hurting. She squeezed my hand. You've faced challenges most people couldn't handle. The room was silent. Then I told her the truth. You're not broken. You're the strongest woman I know. For the first time in months, I saw something change in her eyes. Not confidence. Not happiness. But hope. A tiny spark. And sometimes a tiny spark is enough. Recovery wasn't immediate. Healing rarely is. There were setbacks, frustrations, difficult conversations. But little by little, she began fighting for herself again. She returned to physical therapy with determination, started counseling, allowed friends to support her, accepted help instead of feeling ashamed of it. Most importantly, she stopped measuring her worth by what she could or couldn't do. A year later, something unexpected happened. The food bank where we met organized a celebration honoring longtime volunteers. Emily didn't know they were planning anything special. When we arrived, hundreds of people filled the community center. Families she had helped, volunteers she had mentored, children who were now teenagers, elderly neighbors, single parents, teachers, veterans. People from every background imaginable. One by one, they stood and shared stories. How she had delivered groceries during snowstorms. How she had raised money for medical bills. How she had spent holidays serving meals instead of celebrating herself.